I used to have steak for breakfast. A little part of me was like, I shouldn't be doing this. And I went home, told my parents, I was like, I'm not eating meat anymore. It's just even more clear. Like, it's just like crystal clear. Hi guys, welcome back to another video. Today's video might be a bit long overdue, but I thought I would take this opportunity to talk to you guys and tell you a little bit about my vegan story, and I guess tell you kind of the reason why I decided to embark on this journey called veganism. And I call this a journey because I really do feel like veganism is a journey. Well, it has been for me. I know there's a lot of people that, you know, go vegan from like overnight. They just go straight from eating meat, dairy, eggs, everything to vegan. Sorry, I have like clothes here. My room is really small. Okay, I live in London. So I know a lot of people, there are a lot of people that do, you know, have that transition story where they just literally go from meat eating to vegan. However, for myself, and I think for a lot of other people, veganism is a journey. And it's something that takes longer than just overnight. This might be quite a long story. I haven't really planned out exactly what I'm gonna say, but I kind of know in my head, because obviously, you know, I've lived my life, so I kind of know what to tell you guys, but hopefully it will be interesting enough for you. And yeah, so yeah, it might be quite long, so if you don't want to watch, you don't have to, but if you do, maybe grab a cup of tea, and then let's just have a little chat, okay? Okay, so where do I even start? So I guess I should just start with giving you guys a bit of my background. I don't know if you guys watch my videos or you don't, but I am Korean Canadian, and I was born in South Korea, and I moved to Canada when I was 8 years old. So being born in South Korea and being South Korean, basically I had no awareness of animal rights or even really had any animals in my life until much later on down the line. And I didn't even know like what vegetarians were. I'm pretty sure when I was like young and like living in Korea, I literally did not know that there were people that didn't eat meat. I don't know if I'm the only one. I don't know if other people can relate to that, but I'm pretty sure that it wasn't until much later when I was like maybe in Canada or when I was like 8 years old or maybe somewhere around there that my mom was like, okay, yes, there are people in the world that don't eat meat, blah, blah, blah. But before that, I just had no idea because I was just like everybody else. You know, you're born and then you just live your life kind of the way that everyone else around you kind of lives their lives. And then you just kind of follow along, do what you're told, eat what you're told to eat what you're given, and that's it, you know? So I ate all of those animal products, you know, I ate meat, I ate fish, I ate, you know, I didn't really like dairy when I was young. Well, at least I didn't like milk, I didn't like cheese when I was like really, really young, and then when I moved to Canada, of course, I started liking cheese and all that stuff. But yeah, I ate all of those animal products, and I didn't think twice, just like everybody else. I didn't have any vegetarians, let alone vegans around me when I was growing up. So it was just like, you know, it was just something that was so distant from me and something that was so not of a concern. That's my background. So this just shows you that we're all capable of change, because honestly, I was like the biggest meat eater. But anyways, I'm just kind of going all over the place now. So what happened? So I was in Canada and again, didn't really know anything about animal rights, didn't really know why people would, you know, fight for animal rights, because I was like, you know, human beings have enough problems in this world. Why are we fighting for animals? Blah, blah, blah. Like, I didn't really understand at all, like, what animal rights activists were about. I just kind of assumed that they were all crazy, just like the media portrays them to be crazy, and I just didn't understand. But mainly just because I wasn't aware of anything and I hadn't really ever actually spoken to anybody that was like a true animal rights activist. Like, no one had ever actually spoken to me about why they were, you know, vegetarian. And it wasn't until I was like, I was 16 that I guess had my first real, I guess, you know, real bond with an animal, which is when I got my dog. Insert picture here because she is so cute. Oh God. If you are wondering, she's a Bichon Shih Tzu, and she's quite old now, but she's still so adorable. Anyways, oh god, I'm so getting off track. So anyways, so I got my dog when I was 16, I think, and this was the real first time that I had a real kind of connection with an animal and just real love for another species, I guess. Before that, again, I had really no interaction with animals. Even though I really did empathize with animals, I do remember when I was a teenager, I would watch like a movie with, you know, other animals, and I would really empathize with them. I would cry in these movies with other animals and not really understand why I was crying. I was like, why am I crying over this like dog, or why am I crying over this like pig? And I remember watching this movie about this cow that had a really strong bond with this boy, and this boy was like a chef. This was like some random Korean movie. I don't even remember what it was, but basically this boy was like a chef, and then he grew up with this cow, and then he entered this like cooking contest, and then he had to like basically kill his cow so that he could cook his cow. I can't even remember this. And then the cow like knew her fate, and I remember there was like a scene where the cow was like walking to her death and she was like crying, and oh my god, it was just like the saddest movie ever. Anyways, I just remember crying like so much watching that movie and other movies that have animals and being like, why am I crying? Oh my god. So anyways, again, I'm going off track. Holy crap. So anyways, I do remember, even though I didn't have any any kind of real bond with other animals, I still empathize with them. I still would watch movies, or, you know, if I see an animal getting hurt, you know, it would upset me, you know, just like it should upset me. Ugh. Anyways, got my dog, 16, got my dog. And then this is when I really realized, like, that we're really not that different, you know, dogs, humans. Like, we have those same emotions. Like, you could see, you know, when she was happy, you could just see it. When she was sad, you can see that they're really not that different. And that's I guess the first real realization I had with another animal like that. But of course, I was just like everybody else, didn't make any sort of connection with, you know, what I was eating, even though I had this animal that I loved. But, you know, the animal was a dog. So again, I did not make any sort of connection and continue to eat, you know, meat, dairy, eggs, all of those animal products, and so on and so forth. And it wasn't until I went into university and I took a class, which I guess you could say kind of changed my life, or changed the course of my life. It was a philosophy class, and it was, I believe it was called what was it called? I think it was called Contemporary Moral Issues or something along those lines. And basically the course was about different types of, you know, morally debatable issues that were prevalent in today's society. For example, abortion or euthanasia, things like that. And one of the topics was animal rights. And before this, again, like I said before, I had absolutely no clue about animal rights, had never even spoken to anybody about animal rights, never debated anybody really about animal rights, had no idea, did not even care, didn't want to go there. No one around me challenged my belief system. No one around me asked me why I ate meat, didn't have to think about it, continued to have those blinders on, and yeah. So it wasn't until that point when I was taking this class, and I highly suggest, if you are in university, to take a philosophy class or more, because I took 2 philosophy classes when I was in university, and they are probably the best classes I've taken in university. Yeah. So if you can have, you know, an elective or an option or whatever, I would highly suggest taking a philosophy class and learning about kind of moral or ethical, you know, theories and things like that, because it's very interesting. Anyways, so I took this class. Why am I like going crazy? Anyway, I took this class called Contemporary Moral Theories, I think, something like that, or something. And we're talking about animal rights, and this was the first time, like I said, that I ever had any sort of intellectual thought about animal rights. And essentially, I was just blown away that I would read these papers. I remember reading, you know, both sides of the argument, you know, pro animal rights versus I don't really give a shit about animal rights and this is why, or whatever. And I remember reading these papers, and the pro-animal rights just made so much sense. And I remember my professor saying this extremely, like, I remember this so well, and this was many, many years ago. I remember my professor saying something about, I believe it was an excerpt from something that Peter Singer wrote. And Peter Singer, if you do not know, is a very famous philosopher, and he's quite a well-known person in the animal rights community because he does a lot of, work about animal rights and animal rights philosophy and all of that stuff. So there was something that he wrote, and my professor was basically like, you know what, it is incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to argue against him. It is almost impossible to argue against him. And I'm pretty sure my professor was not a vegan or a vegetarian even, I don't know. But basically he was just saying that, all of the arguments that Peter Singer and all of these other animal rights activists were putting out just made sense. It just, like every single time someone would try to debate them, they would just end up contradicting themselves. So one of the things that were discussed was, of course, speciesism, which is the first time I heard that word. And if you haven't heard it before, which I'm sure most of you have, because I think most of the people that watch my videos are probably vegan, or at least, somewhere along the journey. And the word is basically a word that's kind of parallel to, racism or sexism, a word that describes a certain type of discrimination, and this time against species. So yeah, speciesism is this word that I had never heard of before. And I think it was in Peter Singer's paper that I came across this word during my class, and I was just blown away. I was just like, I can't argue against this. This makes so much sense. And and I went through this entire debate in my head. I remember just being kind of almost mentally traumatized. Like I was just like, I can't believe that I couldn't see this before. I can't believe that this is so true. Like I can't argue against, these people that are obviously speaking the truth. For example, a lot of people argue, there's so many irrational arguments for meat eating, and it is incredibly easy to just say such irrational things. But when you're sat there and learning in a classroom and learning about the actual theories and actually seeing both sides of the argument, it's just even more clear. It's just crystal clear. But even then, and this is going to make me sound terrible, even then, because I was so used to eating meat and I had absolutely nothing, no one around me that was a vegetarian or a vegan, I just didn't, I went through, again, a lot of debates in my own head. And I was just like, oh my God, I feel like I should go vegetarian, but I don't think I can, and all of this stuff. So I remember I ended up trying vegetarianism for a week. And I went into it with the wrong mindset. I went into it thinking, I'm going to do it for a week, because I literally thought I couldn't do it. And I think this is what a lot of people think. They just think they can't do it. I think that is literally the majority. I think a lot of people that are relatively intelligent will accept that this is probably the way we should be eating, but they just literally think that they can't do this. So that is what I thought. I just remember thinking, I can't do this. I can't go vegetarian. It's impossible. I love eating this, and I don't think I can eat any other way. So anyways, I went vegetarian for a week, and then I went back to eating animal products. I finished the course, and I just kind of, I guess, shut that part of my brain, not completely off, but I kind of warded off that side of the brain and kind of chose not to think about it for a bit, which again sounds really terrible. But whatever. Anyway, so I did that, and I lived my life. I think that course I took probably in 2008 or 2009, so it was a long time ago. And then I essentially continued, to eat animal products, but I always knew, still in the back of my head, that a little part of me was like, I shouldn't be doing this. And I remember when I was 22 or something, I remember writing down kind of a list of goals by the time I'm 25, and one of them was go vegetarian. I remember that, and that was after the class, and before I had never thought about it. Anyways, so continue to live my life, whatever. And then it wasn't until 2011, I think this was yeah, 2011, so like 2 years after I took the class, or maybe a year after. So I remember I was at work. I was working at where was I working? I was working in a cell phone shop, and it was in our campus. So it was like, yeah, it was in our campus. It was a cell phone shop, and it was during the summer, so it was really, really slow, and there was like nobody that came into the shop. So I just ended up kind of reading all day and just like doing random stuff on the computer, and didn't really do any work because there was just no customers. And I remember I was like browsing through, different books to read. I can't really remember like why I was browsing through this, but basically I guess my manager at the time, she saw me like looking at a book called Skinny Bitch, just kind of online. I was like, ooh, this book sounds interesting. I had no idea what it was about. And my manager was like, oh, hey, I have that book. Do you want me to lend it to you? And I was like, okay, sure. So she brought it in one day, or the next day she brought it in, and I started reading it. And it turns out it's kind of like a diet book, but it is essentially kind of a vegan style diet book where they talk about I guess the problems with the current, status quo and the foods that we're eating now. And it touches on, of course, the factory farming process and all of that stuff. And I remember just reading that book, and I didn't put it down until I got to the factory farming part, which like they kind of went into graphic detail about what happens in a factory farm and what they do to these animals and how they're treated. And I just remember I think I was about like maybe not even halfway through the book, and I remember just putting it down like halfway through the book and just being so disturbed. And I just thought, okay, I can't eat meat anymore. I remember that moment like distinctly, and I said that in the store. I said that to my colleague, I think, and my manager, and I was like, I just can't eat meat anymore. So that day I decided to stop eating meat. That was my first step, stop eating meat. And then I went home, told my parents, I was like, I'm not eating meat anymore. But then I continued to eat eggs, dairy, because I was just like, I don't know why. I don't think I even considered like dropping eggs and dairy or even fish. I just kind of thought, okay, meat, I can't do it. And then I, of course, because, following that, I started doing more research. So that was my, I guess, real first step. And following that, I started doing more research, reading more stuff. And then, of course, I think about a month after I kind of stopped eating meat, I watched a movie called Earthlings, which is available on YouTube, and I recommend everyone, if you have not seen it, I think everyone needs to watch it. It's an incredibly eye-opening and incredibly important film to watch. It is not the happiest film, but it's incredibly important in my opinion. Anyways, I watched Earthlings, and then I was like, oh my god, I can't eat, like, there's no way. I can't support dairy, and I can't support the egg industry anymore because I just can't. Like, all of these atrocious things are happening, and I was just like, I can't really remember clearly, but I just remember watching Earthlings and just crying the entire time. I don't think I've ever cried so much while watching any sort of film. God, it was just, yeah. But so basically after that, I think this was like probably August or September of 2011, I stopped eating dairy and eggs for the most part, like for the most part, I stopped eating dairy and eggs. But for some reason, I just did not give up fish. You guys, like, seriously, vegans are probably watching this video being like, oh my god, you stupid person. But yeah, I couldn't give up fish. I couldn't do it. I was like, I need to eat fish. And I think this is not an excuse, by the way, but I'm trying to kind of think of my own reasoning. I just feel like it's mainly because I just couldn't empathize with, fish as much as I could with other animals, which again is not an excuse, because I know fish feel pain. I know fish, are sentient beings, obviously. So it wasn't like I, was in denial that they weren't. But it was just mainly like, it was just for my own selfish reasons that I just continued to consume fish. So essentially I was a plant-based eater minus fish. So I was a pescatarian, but I wasn't eating dairy or eggs. So I did that for a very long time. Obviously I wasn't eating fish every single meal. So like, I did eat vegan for quite most of the time, and then I would have fish, you know, when my parents would cook me fish or something. And slowly I just kind of started eating less fish, and it just kind of went into, you know, just less fish. And I never thought I could actually fully go vegan, just because I thought I could never give up fish. And then, but it was mainly because I think I was living at home and I just felt like it was just easier to eat fish. So then I, fast forward, you know, eating fish, not eating other animal products, whatever. But I fully, at this point, I fully believed in veganism. I knew that veganism was probably the best way to eat. Even though I wasn't eating that way, I knew vegans were right. I was like, vegans, like I know they're right. Like, I just couldn't, there's no way. You can't argue. You can't logically, as an intellectual person, argue against it. Yeah, so I was eating fish even though I knew I shouldn't be, just because I thought I couldn't give it up. I knew I was a hypocrite. I knew it all. And then I moved to London. I moved to London last year, so 2014. I'm here on a 2-year visa, by the way, if you guys don't know. So I came here last year, June, and then I remember when I moved here, I was like, okay, I'm just not going to eat fish. Because at this point, I had already kind of realized, like, I don't really need fish, and I was only mainly eating it just because I was living at home, and, you know, my mom would make fish, and I would just be like, okay, it's there, so I'll eat it. But then I was like, now that I'm living by myself, and now that I have full control over what I'm buying in terms of groceries, and, you know, I'm buying my own groceries all the time, so I'm just not going to buy fish. Like, I don't need to buy fish, I don't need to eat fish, and I'm just going to completely go vegan. So pretty much since then, I did have fish a couple of times when my parents came to travel and stuff. But other than that, I have been, you know, vegan. I don't know if this is a good story or if it's going to just make people angry, but this just shows you, literally my journey was like years, okay? Years. It wasn't like I watched Earthlings and it was like, okay, click. Which is why I totally understand people when they are frustrated, when they, you know, when they kind of don't know what to do, or when they even try to be defensive. I do understand it. But I don't think I ever really was in denial when I was presented with all of the evidence. I was never really in denial that, you know, that the evidence was right. You know, I was never trying to argue with somebody that, you know, human beings were superior, or that, you know, human beings need to eat meat or whatever. Because I always kind of knew that the evidence was right. I just knew for myself, I just thought for myself that I couldn't go vegan. So I always say now I'm still on my journey. I'm still not 100% there, which is why another reason why I wanted to make this video, to kind of show you guys that it doesn't have to be 100%, and it does not have to be 100% perfect right off the bat. It is a journey. And I know that some vegans are extremely harsh about, you know, people going 100% fully vegan right away, no questions asked, no excuses. And I get that, but at the same time, because I know that I did not take that path, and I took a completely kind of long path towards veganism. So that's why I know that sometimes it takes a really, really long time. Many baby steps, many baby steps along the way. And it took me a very long time, and I'm still on the journey. I have not perfected it yet. I don't know if I ever will, but I believe in it. In my opinion, it is the ideal way to eat. I'm so happy that I came across this, and a lot of people say ignorance is bliss, and in a way they might be right, but in another way I don't agree. I think that it makes me happier knowing that I'm no longer simply a completely mindless consumer that just, you know, does things without thinking. And I'm just happy. I'm happy that I feel like I've been enlightened. I feel like I've, you know, I never thought, like, seriously, you never, most vegans, you know, if you actually speak to them, they always say something like, I never thought I could go vegan, or I never thought I would go vegan. So it's really interesting how just spreading this knowledge can really help change a person's belief system and perception. And when people say to me like, oh, vegans are, oh, you're so like close-minded, you're so narrow-minded, I'm like, really? Like, I've completely changed my lifestyle from being what what you are now, basically eating meat, eating dairy, eating eggs, loving it. I ate steak like every freaking day. Like, I literally ate meat like pretty much every meal of every day. I was like eating meat. I used to have steak for breakfast. Like, I'm not even kidding. I used to have steak like rare, like dripping blood. And that is how much of a meat eater I was. That, to go from that to, veganism, even though it took a while, like, it took baby steps. So don't feel like you absolutely have to completely go vegan. It's just about reducing the damage, learning more about what's going on, being a mindful consumer, knowing where your money is going, voting with your money, and actually trying to make a difference yourself, even though you're just one little person in this giant world, just believing that you and a few other people can really make a difference. And I do believe that. I do honestly believe that, these little things, these little steps can make a huge difference. Anyways, oh my god, I think I'm done talking. I don't know if anyone is still watching. If you're still watching, write down below, write in the comments section, roses are red. I don't know. Write that if you're still watching by this point. Roses are red. People might be confused, but whatever. I don't know why I said roses are red, because my name's Rose. But anyway, anyways, I don't know if you guys found this interesting. Let me know what you think. Let me know your vegan story. Write down below in the comments. Let me know why you decided to go vegan, or maybe you're not vegan yet, or what happened. Maybe you just watched Earthlings and you're just like, oh my god. But yeah, that's my story. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye bye.